Hello and welcome to the second episode of the new series from OperaVision, Next Generation. I'm Nina Brazier, a stage director based in Frankfurt, and over the coming months I'm taking you to 4 young artist programmes across Europe, exploring how the opera world is developing and nurturing the next generation of talent. Starting in Rome, exploring Opera for Peace's inaugural Opera Academy, and on to Pesaro to the Accademia Rossiniana at the Rossini Opera Festival. Then I'll welcome you to my operatic home, Oper Frankfurt and our opera studio, before we head west across the Mediterranean to Valencia in Spain, home of the Palau de les Arts and their Centre de Perfectionnement. With backstage access to masterclasses, concerts, rehearsal rooms and dressing rooms, we'll find out how the singers negotiate the physical and emotional highs and lows as they explore their unique operatic voice. I'll also meet experts and coaches to hear what techniques they use to guide young artists and how they engage, motivate and build each singer's confidence, alongside teaching that all-important technique. In episode 1, we went on a whistle-stop tour of the 4 young artist programmes and met 4 of our young singers, alongside hearing words of wisdom from experts such as Larry Brownlee. Today we're diving deeper into Opera for Peace, a not-for-profit organisation that aims to level the playing field and offer opportunities and career development for people of all backgrounds, experience and ages, and reflect the reality of today's globalised and diverse world. I was at their recent academy in Rome, which brought together 20 singers from 17 countries for an intense week of masterclasses, coachings, and expert advice. I want to hear not only about the challenges of the programme for the artists and the experts, but what the singers are taking away with them, and what's next. I'll go deeper into coping with auditions, dealing with comparison with competing artists, and the importance of finding their own artistic identity. Let's start with some choice thoughts from the singers we're going to be following.
One thing that I'm going to do, I think I'm going to take with me and continue, is to not put a lot of pressure on me because someone did this way. So what I want to do, I want to pay respect to the music that's written and try my best to interpret what the composer wrote, but in my own way. And I'm going to trust my voice and my talent.
The way I approached it at first, obviously, we sang it in a Masterclass, so I performed it once and I was a little bit nervous. So the way it came out was probably a little bit, he said it sounded angry. But I think I was just trying to find the sweet spot. Obviously didn't find it at all.
What about life after the academy in Rome?
It can always be a little bit awkward standing there watching the panel deliberate on what piece you should sing next. It can feel like an eternity. And you can always play that game of, oh, well, if I sing this, then they'll pick this. But you really can't, because they'll pick whatever they want and you have no idea.
And back to Violeta Samon, who you'll recognise from our last episode.
At the very beginning of my study, I was a coloratura soprano, but then the second professor told me that maybe I'm a mezzo because of my dark color in my voice. But then I always felt that, come on, I'm not mezzo. Maybe sometimes I'm like a beach soprano, but I'm not mezzo.
And what do the experts feel is important for the artists to take away with them?
So they walk in with the talent's something they were given, that they were born with. The technique comes through teaching, and that's a huge investment of time and money. And there's a third piece of this that I feel really strongly about, and that is tenacity. And this is something I say to every emerging artist I meet, because if they are feeling sort of half and half about wanting to do this as a career, they should find something else. So it's sort of these 3 T's.
And it seems like it's not just the 3 T's they need to think about.
Remember what I said. Who are you? When are you? Where are you? Why are you? And what are you going on about?
Let's remind ourselves of the mission of Opera for Peace.
The globalization of classical music is going to be the story of classical music in the 21st century, if it has a story at all.
Jenna Wolf is one of their co-founders and their development and communications consultant. She joined me from her home in Lido dei Pini outside Rome.
I first became aware of the idea of Opera for Peace from Julia, who of course is the lead founder of the organization and the general director. My husband Brian was cast by her to sing Don José and Carmen in Limoges, where she used to head up casting. And she reached out to me in the late spring of 2019 and said, hey, could we meet up? Some colleagues and I have an idea and I'd love to run it by you and see if you want to get involved. At the heart of the conversation, we really were discussing the well-being of emerging artists in this field and where we as an industry were certainly helping and supporting and guiding them in the areas that we as an industry have fallen short, not only in what we offer them, but also in protecting them, also in the way that we share their stories with the world. So collectively, Julia and myself and our other colleagues, our other co-founders, decided that we wanted to address this head on and really come up with a first of its kind organization, an international nonprofit, to collaborate with existing opera houses and other venues and ensembles, but also artists themselves, to see how we could collectively influence the next generation of artists and how they in turn could positively influence the world around them.
One of the refreshing things about Opera for Peace is that unlike many programmes, they don't have an age limit to applying, as they understand that people without the resources or finances for an operatic education or with caring responsibilities might come to such an opportunity at a different time in their lives. In fact, we're encouraged to call them emerging artists rather than young artists. So how have our emerging artists been getting on? Here's Ukrainian soprano Violeta back at my kitchen table in Frankfurt.
Opera for Peace and teachers from Opera for Peace, especially Kamal, he told me one thing to be honest, maybe I really wanted to hear. He told me, hey, you're even a lyric coloratura soprano, come on, you're not a dramatical soprano. Keep an eye on it and think about it. And I always knew that the spirit of being a participant of this program, Opera for Peace, gave me an understanding that I shouldn't be afraid of trying everything what I really love to try. So now I'm touching like every piece I really always wanted to sing, with no fear, with no judging.
It's really interesting that actually what Kamal said to you is what you'd already thought, but it was just having that confirmed by somebody else.
Yeah. And not only confirmed, but it worked.
And you said about how you wanted to address problems with your vocal technique.
Yeah.
What did you mean? What do you think of as like problems?
Okay, breath supporting from your posture. What the best posture for me, for example, to lean on my toes. Kamal gave me a nut to deal with my tongue.
Literally a nut.
Yeah. And I use it to let my tongue like lie in my mouth with no tension.
You may remember from the first episode, Violeta felt like she'd failed after she sang in the Thomas Hampson Masterclass. She said that she really wanted to give up, that she didn't even remember singing Manon because it was like she switched herself off. But did Hampson, one of America's foremost baritones, think it was a failure?
You iron over it a little bit, you kind of go through it a little bit, and I think there's more vulnerability. I think there's also more quick thought change, right? So we start again, right? And don't be nervous, take a breath, and don't tell people what you're thinking. Don't tell them how you're feeling. Sing the music, and that will tell us everything. And don't emote. Don't hustle your audience. Now do it without collapsing your body. You've been working in your cellar too long. Threw it all under the bus. Stay in this column. Sing. Ooh. It has far more lift. The throat is freer. Of course. Yes. Well, not of course. I mean, you can tell me I'm full of shit, but, you know, I'm not. Okay. Are you courageous? I want to try something, right? Okay. I'm going to very lightly put my hand here on your forehead, and you lean against my hand. Yeah? Okay. As you're singing, right? And then I'm going to let it go, and we're going to see what happens.
Direct par la beauté.
Oui.
Je ne suis que faiblesse et que fragilité. Malgré moi, je sens courir.
What's happening? Kind of wild, huh?
Yeah.
Can you do it without my hand?
We'll try to.
Yeah, but this is the feeling. This is the feeling. This is the anchor and freedom.
Failure here is, of course, an inevitable part of the learning process. While Violeta was grappling with feelings of failure, you may remember from episode 1 that we had 2 Narinas in Larry Brownlee's Masterclass. What did that feel like for one of the singers?
My name is Yolisa Ngwekana. I'm from South Africa, Cape Town.
Yolisa and I caught up down the line from her home in South Africa and mine in Frankfurt.
We first met, it was actually, I think, in the bathrooms before your lovely masterclass with Lawrence Brownlee. What thoughts were going through your mind?
One thing that was actually stressing me that I just found out before the masterclass was that I'm singing an aria that another soprano is singing in the masterclass. I think as singers, we always judge ourselves, am I going to do the best?
And when you stepped up on stage and began singing, do you still have those thoughts with you, or do they sort of disappear as you start to sing?
They only just the few seconds of the aria when you start. And then after that, they all disappear. You become free, you become more in the character. So it's just a few seconds of when you start, and then after that, I just forget about all those thoughts.
Back in Frankfurt, I asked Violeta if comparison with other singers was inevitable.
Yes, of course. At the very beginning, I think that it was like that because we didn't know each other, what type of voice you have. We were so different, and it was not about the voice. It was about this journey of everybody, background, grief, fight, not only about the voice. It is unbelievable how music can create a very special environment for people from different countries, different life obstacles, different everything.
Before the evening concert at the Sala Accademia in Rome, as the singers warmed up in the next rooms, I met another emerging artist.
Talofa. My name is Samson Setu. I'm a baritone from Auckland, New Zealand. My family actually come from Samoa, the beautiful island of Samoa, which is a neighbouring island of New Zealand. I'm currently based in New York as a young artist on the Lindemann program at the Metropolitan Opera House. And it's such an honor and a blessing to be here as part of the Opera for Peace project.
Is comparison something that you struggle with at all as you explore your voice and your artistic identity?
I don't think it's something that I struggle with, but I think it's probably quite natural for young singers, when you're still figuring it out. When you constantly listen to other singers, you think, wow, how's he doing that? Or how's she making that vowel so rich or so dark? For me, that's probably the extent of the comparison, because I know that, at the end of the day, it's you against you almost, when you compare yourself to other singers and stuff like that, can probably definitely do more damage than good. So
in auditions across the industry, singers are compared to one another. That's a given and part of the competitive nature of the art form. Of course, the experience is different for different voice types. And as you can imagine, it is often for the sopranos that things are most competitive. What has Yolissa learnt?
In these masterclasses, there's one thing that I've learned, that you need to be you. For example, for me, I was working more with on the masterclass with Thomas, with posture and to be grounded and to trust you. For me to trust my instrument and to actually be me, because I think that's more than enough for the people to. I think they get attached to a person if they are really being honest with who they are.
So what exactly did Thomas Hampson say on her posture?
Seriously, everything you want, you're marvelously talented and you're gifted. It's a beautiful, beautiful voice, right? You're very lazy with your body.
Yeah.
Ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips. That's non-negotiable. The spine should be as long as you can make it standing. Everything from here up is up and breathing. Everything from here down is in the floor anchored. Anchor, lift. Inhale, exhale. Take care of the inhaling muscles, the intercostals. That's all we do.
You can put that quote into context by watching the masterclass on our website. Samson Setu again.
For me, I'm exploring some new repertoire. And Kamal, he's a genius, Then I've just kind of recently changed the baritone from bass baritone. So this week we had a couple sessions together. We've explored new repertoire, which I think has been, a difficult thing, but an exciting thing as well. So I did make the change on the program at the Met with the guidance of obviously the team. So I've been, I guess, lucky in that respect that I've had their guidance and their care. Immense pleasure to sing for Ludovic Tezier, who's one of the world's leading baritones and has been for a wee while now. And he managed to take an aria that I'm quite comfortable with and forced me to, find another level of meaning to singing that aria.
Back in Rome, I caught up with Kamal Khan, the co-founder and artistic and musical advisor, between the rehearsal at the Sala Accademia and the evening's performance. We walked back to the Accademia Internazionale di Musica e Arte and sat on a chaise in a practice room overlooked by two grand pianos. He's a bit frustrated because in the rehearsal for tonight's concert, the scene with everyone singing chorus in the Te Deum from Tosca was, let's say, not as musically well prepared as it could have been. In fact, he hadn't originally been certain about having a concert at all. But why?
Because I didn't want to sell out the pedagogy. But it made yesterday and the day before very stressful because I even instructed my fellow coaches, do the repertoire they think they need. If they think they don't know the music for the concert, they can avail themselves of you. But they have lives before and after this concert. And generally, it's not about singers. It's about a certain generation. That when you tell them apportion your time between your personal responsibilities and your responsibilities to the collective unit, they ignore the collective until it goes into their face. And it doesn't matter if it's people that won't get the COVID vaccine or what. It's the same thing. Because on the telephone, on our little mobile screen, we are the God of our universe and we can make the world come and go on our screens. It is hard to remember that we have responsibilities to other people.
We'll hear more about being the centre of the universe on our screens later in the episode. But before that, I wanted to know from Kamal, what are the mistakes that he saw over and over again in the singers?
Not studying recitativi. Not taking seriously the needs of how characters express in the recitativo. I think Maestro Muti said something in an interview a long time ago that I really liked. Someone said they liked the arias better than the recitativo, and he said, well, sometimes I like the recitativo better than the aria, because the aria is like the land, terra firma, and the recitativo is like the bridge or a promontory, and generally from these points the view is more interesting. Lo sguardo del ponte è più bello che lo sguardo della terra, forse.
Samson has also taken on some valuable lessons from his masterclass with Ludovic Tézier.
So I was singing Wolfram's aria from Tannhäuser, the O du mein holder Abendstern. And, anyone that knows opera will know that, Ludovic is one of the best baritones of this age. He didn't approach the music technically with me. It was all, the intent behind the music, and just focus purely on the text, on the context of this aria. Without thinking about technique, the technique kind of just improves itself. He was super, super sensitive as well towards this lovely piece of music. And he just really made me sing it with absolute sincerity, and it was awesome.
Singing professionally wasn't actually Samson's first ambition.
I actually went to England when I was about 21 to play rugby, and I thought, this is what I wanted to do. This has always been my dreams, to play, professional rugby. And it's not until I came home to collect my gears that I chatted to my mum, and she said to me, you should really just consider finishing off whatever music study you've already began. Just try to see it through, at least give it one more shot. And so I said, why not? And then I was given an opportunity to go to the Royal College in London. When I got that news, I thought to myself, well, I can't turn back now. So I firmly believe that everything happens for a reason. And as much as I would have really loved to have played, some good rugby, and made money off of it, I think in the long term, it's probably better for my body that I didn't go down that path. I tried not to play as much, obviously, considering the risks involved in playing, but it's a good, to get away, something completely different from opera. Just let some steam off and stuff like that. So.
Meanwhile, Thomas Hampson is working with Yelissa in the masterclass.
The coloring of a voice is your thought. It's your imagination. It's your intent to communicate. The clearer your thoughts, the better your singing. Your technical, physical ability to produce sound is without question the alpha and omega of everything you want in your life. Now comes the punchline. Your you is your believability.
I went on to ask her about finding her voice and her artistic identity.
For me, as I just came out of university and with less experience, I was intimidated the first time, when we're introducing ourselves. Then you get to find out that people have been in the industry for longer than you. Yes, that can actually intimidate you. But what I've learned from that I would love other young singers not to compare yourself from anyone. Not to say that because you don't have much experience than other people, then you think of yourself as less important. The reason that you are wherever you are with the people that you're with is because you deserve to be there. So you should use the opportunity to learn from them.
After the academy, mezzo-soprano Rachel Barg is now busy understudying Frau Mary in Der Fliegende Holländer at Opera Main.
Is it sometimes difficult to take back new ideas that have come from outside, or is your coach sort of very open to taking on board what you've received from elsewhere?
They're pretty open, I'd say. I guess you also need to know if what that person is saying rings true for you, because everyone speaks in different ways about singing and music.
What do you take when you go into an audition? What is your sort of inverted commas package?
So I feel like every year it's always a little bit of a scramble because I feel like, oh yeah, next year it's going to be great and I'm going to have like 5 arias that I feel great about. I think I will be bringing Cruda Sorte from L'Italiana in Algeri. I might be bringing the letter scene from Werther. I will bring an aria from the opera Elizabeth Cree by Kevin Putz. And then I guess I will also probably bring Da Chas Nastal from The Maid of Orleans by Tchaikovsky. And I feel like you need to swap them out depending on what you're auditioning for and who you're singing for.
So you would normally sort of come into an audition with sort of to be ready to sing any of 5 arias, and they might ask you for one?
Typically, you get to choose your first piece, though sometimes they can be a little bit mean and then say that they don't want to hear that piece.
I caught up with Samson again when he was back in New Zealand over a rather crackly line.
I don't have like a set ritual-based preparation for an audition per se, but I guess given my love of sport, I usually try to do some sort of physical activity, going for like jog or gymming, and sometimes a physical like exercise warms me up better, like vocally, than spending half an hour trying to vocally warm up in the practice room. The lungs are going and, you know, it's kind of like a shortcut or a cheat code to warming up. Of course, it's an audition, but in my head, this is another opportunity to sing an aria, another opportunity to practice under pressure. Yeah, I try to be as relaxed as possible, and it seems to work, I think, sometimes.
Tre sbirri, una carrozza, presto, seguila dovunque vada, non visto, provvedi, sta bene il convegno, Palazzo Farnese. Va, Tosca, nel tuo cuor s'annida Scarpia.
I wondered if artistic and musical advisor Kamal Khan had insights into how artists can focus on themselves, but in a healthy way. We chatted from his home in New York and mine in Frankfurt.
Now, we chatted a bit in Rome about how singers, and indeed all of us, are at the sort of centre of our own worlds in our phones, and sometimes at the expense perhaps of an obligation to the group or the ensemble. And I'd love to go back and just play devil's advocate a bit. And I'm just wondering if for those singers who are really looking to get to the top of their field, if this focus on self can that in a way be quite helpful for their careers?
Absolutely. It's a dual-edged phone, as it were. A 2-SIM card phone, perhaps, is a better way to put it. Because, of course, the intense focus on self and quality, this is very good, but, you know, Rosa Ponzel learned how to sing just fine without a tape recorder. You sometimes, focusing on one's growth is brilliant. A narcissistic focus on self and incessant comparison to other people online is very detrimental to the process of becoming your own artist. To record yourself frequently, look at your own recordings, see what's going on, see what changes between when you're practicing and when you know you're recording. This is a great thing. And so if people are using all of these tools we have for rigorous self-examination, I think it's good, because also when you're recording yourself and you have other videos of other people to compare it to, you can also notice when you're getting good.
Because now we are in this age of constantly looking to the side and comparing ourselves with others, what do you think the key might be to really focusing on ourselves and our own development?
If I think of the people who do it successfully, no one does it successfully all the time. Sometimes the intense emphasis on the acting during a rehearsal period leads people to tune everything else out. And about a week before the opening, they're calling me up and sending me videos saying, how am I doing? It's like, oh, okay, let's get to it. So nobody gets it right all the time. Making the self-focus part of a pedagogical process, you need to have a good team who can provide you a reality check. If you have the good fortune to be in an excellent young artist program, all the better, because then you really have people who are watching your development and capable of qualified external quality monitoring.
What has been the biggest challenge about this week?
Making sure that the concert gets prepared while really taking seriously the needs of the singers who come here to work on individual problems. We want to develop the gifts of these young people and at the same time put together a program, not just because we want to have something nice to show to the people that come to the sala, but because collaboration is what this is about. You do want people singing together. You do want a trio with a Chinese baritone living in Germany, a American soprano living in South Africa, and a mezzo from United Emirates. I mean, you do want all of this together. People that listen to each other's singing voices, I believe, are more likely to listen to each other's voices in the broader human sense.
I think it can be a problem for people early on in their careers that they do want to say yes and they do want to take these opportunities that come in. What about the people who perhaps don't have the necessary sort of people guiding them yet? What's the logical way of working through those decisions?
A jacket that's too tight doesn't fit, and a jacket that's too big doesn't fit. One size doesn't fit all, and Mozart isn't the health composer for everyone. And there's been such a sort of a prejudice in that direction, and it hasn't always served people well, and we wonder why certain countries are not producing the singers for the big rep. And sometimes I think it's that in their early phases of training, they get throttled and strangled on literature that really is never going to be their literature, and they just need some breathing room, literally and physically, in the music they sing.
When you say Mozart isn't the health singer for everyone, what exactly do you mean by that?
Okay, I shall go ahead and use names and hope that it's okay. I hope it'll be okay with them. Nadine Sierra has been a big part of my life since she was a teenager. This voice was made to sing Mozart. She won a lot of her first competitions with Ruhe Sanft, but Mozart is always going to be a zone of health and comfort and glory for her voice. Michael Fabiano, Jonathan Tettleman, their voices naturally release in Verdi literature. You know, pieces like Ballo, pieces like Lombardi, the voices love singing in them. They feel that comfort.
And what about the wider health of the industry? I asked Jenna how things had changed since pre-COVID.
I think then, a lot of focus certainly has been placed on financial issues, but I think we really collectively as administrators were not necessarily focusing enough on, again, the well-being and the proper development for artists who are at emerging stages of their career. And I'm not only talking about artists who are what we would consider to be young in the industry. I'm talking about artists at various ages. I think we all have a bit of a bias there, and we're hoping to fight that a little bit in the work that we do. But I think we decided we really needed to start looking at things in an artist-focused way, but also in a way that focuses on community, how artists can have an impact on their communities, their hometowns, their home countries, but also on sort of these larger world issues, like talking about the climate, talking about women's rights and LGBTQIA plus rights, really representation in general in the industry. And I think everyone has become much more aware of these issues, certainly in the past couple of years.
I know you ran a very successful event that many of the singers mentioned to me when I spoke with them in Rome. And I'm wondering what you see are perhaps the common mistakes that young artists, or indeed emerging artists, anyone else, can perhaps avoid when it comes to their own sort of publicity and marketing themselves.
Basically, I led a workshop for the participants in our academy here in Rome. And on the surface, it was about personal branding. So you're talking about your website, digital marketing, press at a certain stage of your career, the way you present yourself to the public. But it always starts off that way and then morphs into something else. And I'm happy when it does, because we can talk a lot about the do's and don'ts for artists on their websites and social media. But I think at the core of it, really, it's that idea of storytelling. You know, they do storytelling on stage. That's their job. And the artists who also can do that through whatever digital presence they have, that makes a stronger case for them being an artist that a public would be interested in. And so I think always staying true to that and not trying to be someone or something else, which also is something they should mirror when they're on stage. I think that's something really strong that they should hold to.
As ever, I wanted to ask our guests about how we can improve the opera world. What's Jenna's view?
Ooh, that's a big question. A short question, that's a big question. I think in the world in general right now, we seem to have a great lack of consideration for other people. And I think if we could introduce that further into our industry, it would benefit us greatly. When you treat artists like people that matter and you realize and respect the fact that they have lives off of the stage, they will do better work for you. They will be better ambassadors for your organization. If you are not doing that, you need to seriously revisit your priorities and ask yourself if you're fulfilling your mission.
I asked Kamal what changes he would like to see in the opera world.
I'm sitting here with a stage director. I really need to watch my words. Don't always assume that every idea we have is better than the composers, and don't always assume that every idea we have is better than the librettists. Be open to what's in the score.
What is the best thing we can hope that the artists will take away with them this week?
Well, a clearer personal sense of how to work, how to study, how they can see themselves in the world of opera today, how they would like to see themselves in the world of opera, and what work they have to do to bring their vision of themselves and the world of opera together.
And here's Rachel Barg.
Well, I guess it would be great to see more different types of people represented, so people from different backgrounds as well as people of different sizes, and to see more large people in leading roles and in romantic roles, and maybe not keeping them on the sidelines.
Let's leave the final thought to Kamal.
These elements that I think of as being not sacrificable is the capacity of the human voice to express emotion as well as telling this story.
Thank you to all our guests from Opera for Peace for joining us on OperaVision, and thanks to you for listening. There's lots more online at operavision.eu, where you can catch up with Larry Brownlee and Thomas Hampson's Masterclasses with Violeta and Ulissa, and Nombulelo Yende's award-winning performance at the Bonushko vocal competition. You can also watch the Accademia Rossiniana performing Il Viaggio a Reims. There are 2 casts to enjoy there, and an evening of operetta and zarzuela from the young artists at the Palau de les Arts. And do keep an eye out for activities on World Opera Day, Tuesday the 25th of October. I'll link to all those productions in the show notes and give information on all the other extracts you heard. Join us for the next episode on Tuesday the 1st of November as we head to the Rossini Opera Festival's Accademia Rossiniana. We'll hear from the renowned director Rosetta Cucchi and, of course, the artists themselves. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do rate, review and subscribe to help other people to find us. This series is edited and produced by Karen Pirri and curated and hosted by me, Nina Brazier. OperaVision is co-funded by the European Commission.